Welcome to the Winner's Playbook with Steve and Josh. Disclaimer: the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.
All right, welcome back to the Winners Playbook. My name is Steve Sloan, the Managing Director of Link Wealth Group. I've got my co-director here, Joshua Lee. Josh, what's happening this week? We've got a fairly big week coming.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be a short week because we're off to the US. So I haven't been to the US before, so I'm very much looking forward to it. But we've got
You know that.
this. Didn't you? Oh, there you go. No, I haven't been out and traveled the world like you, Steve. I haven't
Wow.
had that privilege. I've just been working just basically all my short life. I've just been always on, so I haven't taken the time to relax yet. But those days will come. Those days will come. Don't you worry.
It's a tough job at Link, isn't it?
It is a tough gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, looking forward to it. So we're over there for the Inside Advisor. Or it's basically a advisor study tour, essentially 2 weeks back to back, pretty jam-packed days. So where do we hit first? Boston. I think we go to a couple of the universities, MIT, and then Harvard. We get into Harvard, yeah, and then we go from there to New York, I believe. So we're going to be in Wall Street, meeting with a bunch of different firms, meeting with a ton of advisors, and then we finish in LA for, I believe, one of the biggest advisor conferences in the world as well. So it's going to be pretty jam-packed, but it's good just to get over, I think, and see how other people are doing things. You know what I mean? Because Australia is just in its own little bubble over here. But like you were in the UK last year and got to see how a lot of people are operating over there, and with that, you see the good and the bad and things you can learn. But then there's probably no better place to go to the financial powerhouse of the world, being the US. So you've been there before, though, Steve. Have you had much experience there in terms of the industry over there before? Or?
I have. I've been to what's called the $1 Million Round Table a couple of times in the States, and that's all advisors come together in America from around the world. So I've had a fair bit of exposure to that.
Yep.
But yeah, there's nothing beats, I think, getting outside the country to open up those experiences. I think that until you're there, you don't realise how good it is to get those different experiences. But yeah, no, really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good trip. It's a quick trip, 10 days, back-to-backs each day. So it's going to be exciting.
Yep.
But, mate, ripping into this week's topic, and it's overcoming setbacks and failures. I think it's fair to say that you and I have probably been through a fair few of these ones. But if we kick it off and, what are some of the biggest setbacks in your life and how you've overcome them, mate? Hit me.
Yeah, God, it's a heavy one, Steve. It's a real heavy one. I guess
Very heavy.
You can look at it in a lot of different ways. Like, sure, there was a lot of setbacks during school, in sport. I suppose it's looking at the magnitude of those setbacks, I suppose. I probably think if I look back the last 6-7 years as me being an advisor, I don't think there's probably been any real major setbacks that I would say that I've personally had or experienced. Obviously, there's been some stuff going on in the business and in our industry, royal commissions and things like that. But to be fair, I wasn't also in the hot seat. That was more so just you back then, so I can't say that I felt a huge amount of heat during those times. So I think the last probably last quarter of my life, it's been relatively good. Been very hard, I must say, just in terms of output and work that's been put in. But I think a lot of that came from, and maybe why I don't feel like it's been too difficult for me in the last sort of 6 or 7 years, but other people would look at it and go, well, it actually has, is probably because like earlier in life, just had a lot of setbacks and just went through some shit times, like with my dad passing away when I was young, when I was 7. I do look back and think that changed me a lot. And I think that forced me to grow up incredibly quick, matured very quickly. And then through that, getting into a lot of trouble, just as a kid. And yeah, from that, like just always getting in trouble and doing, not so good things up until probably year 10 or year 11, I would say. I would classify myself as a pretty bad kid. And didn't really know the direction of what I was wanting to do in life and where I wanted to go. But I think, with all of those things, and even looking back at, probably the biggest, setback or something that's happened in my life was, dad passing away. But, I don't look back on that and I can't change it. I just roll with it. I embrace it, learn a lot from it. Mum did what she could with what she had, gave us the best opportunities. But I don't look back on that and go, well, woe is me. Like I didn't have this. I didn't have the opportunities. when I was younger, just had a pretty average upbringing, but then I think pretty early on, just made the decision that I want to kind of be the holder, or I'm not sure the right word there, of my own destiny. I want to take control of my life,
Yeah.
and that's ultimately what I did. So anything that really pops up, I don't. Yeah, are they setbacks? I can't probably look at them more as learnings along the
Yeah.
journey. I
Life.
don't really
Yeah.
see them as setbacks, and I'm a pretty optimistic dude. And I think when anything ever goes wrong in my life or something happens, I'm always trying to look and dissect and find what can I
Mm.
learn from that? Like what did I learn from that experience? And although it can be hard to see at that point in time what the learning may actually be, because you're feeling a lot of pain, all of that's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one. I embrace the pain. I don't mind it. I don't mind being uncomfortable, and I like to learn from it, because I know through that it's kind of like a muscle. I won't talk about the gym on the podcast, but if I if I talk
Oh
about
God.
getting into the gym, well, it's you're putting your
Please
muscles
don't.
under pressure, more weight, and then from that, I know you love it, Steve.
Please don't.
And from
Mm.
that, you come back stronger, and
Yeah.
that's probably a bit of a story of my life. I think I've always just embraced it, and never kind of broken from those failures, and definitely seen a lot of people though that similar circumstances. I can reflect on people in my own family that same circumstances, same ingredients, everything that's gone in, and have just gone on a totally different trajectory in life. But that's enough about me, Steve. What about you in terms of what's some big ones that maybe one or two that you could probably talk to, and how did that sort of make you feel, and what did you do at the time?
Yeah. I think I'm similar to you. Like I don't definitely don't look at the setbacks and go, "Poor me."
Mm,
Yeah. I don't think I've ever done that. I think you've had setbacks. I must say this: if you're going to push hard in any area, especially business, you're going to get setbacks. So I think it's just expect it, because if you push yourself and challenge yourself to the nth degree, it's going to get setbacks. So I like to say to everyone, including clients and colleagues and employees, that if we push hard, well, at some stage we're going to get a bit of a knock, right? So it's just get yourself back up and go again. And by learning from that, you go harder and get better. And that's what successful business people do, right?
yeah.
Look, the things that probably changed me, look, from a very early age, I think I had a really, really bad relationship with my father. And I think that really set me up for just fighting and doing like go get it myself type of mentality. So that's probably where my sort of semi development started from a very
Mm,
early age around that. I think, and that carried through my teens, and I probably got in a little bit of trouble because of that. But I still had that mentality. I'll just go. I've got to fight hard to do it myself, right? So I think that was that definitely shaped me into who I am today. I think the things that like you said about your father, I think death wakes you up pretty quick. I think
yeah.
the reality is that's a pretty ruthless and pretty horrible thing to go through,
Mm,
and I've had a fair bit of it in my life. And I think when that happens, you sort of really assess where you are, what's going on, and you get those light bulb moments
mm,
in life. And I think that does shape you clearly, toughens you up significantly, because you've got to be tough to get through patches like that, especially if you do it multiple times. I think that shapes you. Yeah, and then in business, mate, I think Royal Commission was probably pretty ruthless. That definitely reshaped me for the better.
mm,
For the better. It taught me how to fight really, really hard. I think to the point where there was just it was just all encompassing. You're facing up to some pretty average stuff at that stage, financially, so and family and financially, because you got to go home to your wife and say, "Shit, I don't know if we're actually going to keep the house, so get ready," type of thing. They're pretty hard conversations to have, but I think when you go through moments like that, it gives you an amazing level of strength. Like if I look at the stuff that gets thrown at me and you today in business, like if you probably threw it at me 15 years ago, it would have been a big deal,
mm,
and now it isn't. I walk into some things today, whether that's dealing with big staff issues or something legal that something's thrown at us. It just doesn't affect me as much anymore. And I think it's just because all those things have happened in my life that's given me that silver bullet plate, if you like, in front of me. So yeah, that's
yeah.
my position, and it absolutely shapes you.
Mm,
Those absolutely shape you who you are, creates that person you are, and for the better. It's definitely for the better. But if I didn't go through those times, just wouldn't be the person I am, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I sometimes ponder about the whole thing of, experiencing hard times when, when you're a kid, because then, I don't know if the majority of people actually have come out of it better. Like, I don't know. I
Mm.
sort of think probably, you see a lot of the big business owners and the Elon Musks and a lot of the super successful people for out there in the world, whatever way you want to measure that financially, and a lot of them have generally had like a shitty upbringing. Like they've come from a bad space and
Yeah.
bad relationships, or parents divorced, or whatever it may be. So I don't know. There's got to be something in that. But then I always think, well, does it take bad things like a death or something happening in your life or something traumatic happening in your life to then be successful? I don't think so. But then I also think about people that haven't gone through any sort of setbacks. Are they fragile? Maybe I don't know. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
it's tricky, isn't it? Look, I think I grew up in a lower socioeconomic family, had no money, so it was always from day one. If I wanted something, I had to go work for it and fight bloody hard to get it. That has helped because
Mm,
I never got anything gifted to me. I never got anything given on a plate. It was never easy. I suppose from day it was just always right. Well, if I'm just going to go work for it, and I think that obviously has changed me to just, and even today, I just have that mentality. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you just go fight for it and work harder. Um,
mm,
and then I look at some people that have been gifted a lot of stuff and have had that easy street where they're younger, and some of them have turned out really not great. So
yeah.
it's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one. There's no right or wrong answer to it. Suppose it definitely comes back to just taking that personal responsibility, though, doesn't it?
Mm,
If you want it, yeah, you got to take personal responsibility for everything you do. Your actions are yours. So do it. It's as simple
mm.
as that. So it's a real tricky one. I don't know what the answer is on this one, to be honest.
Yeah, like I don't know, because then I think if like, all right, or so if you haven't had some tough times that you've grown up through, like, do you have to find some tough things to do? I, I
I know,
think
right?
I think
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
I think, but like I don't mean like you're seeking out trouble or anything
yeah.
like that. But I think you need to seek out challenges. You
Go
seek out
run a marathon or
challenges,
something.
and yeah,
Mm,
and because if you're
yeah,
not doing that, like you're not growing, you're ultimately dying. So I think if you've been actually lucky to have a normal upbringing and haven't had any tragedy or traumatic
mm,
times, and you're doing well, and then you're happy. I think you possibly you are missing out on a bit of dose of challenge and tough
yeah,
times, and that's where you might actually go out and find that. And that doesn't, you're not going out picking fights or anything, but that could even be physically,
yeah,
like putting yourself through something physically grueling. Like I would say one of the most physically grueling things I've done lately would be the Melbourne Marathon
yeah,
last year. Like
yeah,
that was just ridiculous, and I didn't even train for that, but I did it for the purposes of, well, first of all, running for a good cause, being beyond blue. But,
yeah,
for me, it was just like a mental challenge that I wanted to go through. And that was like probably one of the most difficult things I could think of. I've only ever run 22 Ks in my life, and then did 42 Ks, in four and a bit hour, or 4 hours, 45 minutes, I think it was. And that was like super tough. But then from that, like, it's just kind of made me stronger. So I would definitely say there's something probably to be said in seeking out
yeah,
challenging obstacles, and whether that is health, in your business, like setting big goals of where you
mm,
want to be, like not being conservative. I know that's not everyone's, um, you know, thing, but I think just get out there and take a swing. I think sometimes, and then from that you might learn, and you might fail, but then from that you learn not what to do next time, and you keep getting further every single time you actually do that, and then maybe you get to where you want to be, if there is such a thing as a destination of where it ends. I don't think there is.
no,
So it's a real interesting concept, but I'm a
yeah.
big believer. It definitely shapes you into who you are.
Yeah, look, and this is probably more of a personal thing. How do you overcome it? So, say we get a setback and
Yep.
it happens, whether it's big or small, whatever it is. How
Yep.
do you get over it? Like, how do you just deal with it and move on?
Yeah. Yeah, like I speak a lot to just well, I fact try to address things I can control. Like, can I
Yeah,
actually control what this outcome is? Like, is it a government changing something in our industry that, like, we literally have no control over? Well, yeah, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm probably going to be annoyed. I might say some words. But am I going to dwell on that for too long? Probably not. Maybe for the day, it might sit in my mind, and it might still linger around there. But then it's not going to hold me back from doing all the things I know I then need to do for the next days, and people rely upon us as of the leaders of the business. So I think that's a big part of what I just think about. Whatever is happening, can I actually control this? If I can, what do I need to be doing? And then ultimately, you have to make a call at some point as well. Whatever obstacle or challenge you're facing or decision needs to be made, like eventually you have to make a call there, and it's not always going to be right. Sometimes trust your gut or intuition. I think that's sometimes a pretty good gauge as well when you go through some challenging times, is just try and listen to what your gut's telling you. I think can go a long way. But yeah, that's probably what's definitely worked for me in terms of you know overcoming some of those setbacks or failures, or
Yeah.
whenever they're happening. What about you, Steve?
I think the key part is probably don't be afraid of the setbacks is the
Yeah.
big one. You got to, as I said before, expect them, especially in business.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a straight line in business. It's going to be up, down, sideways, and every other way. I think there's that chart. I don't know, but it shows the 4 ways that business happens, and there's
Growth. Yeah.
growth. Yeah. And it's so true. Like it's just up and down and sideways. You just got to have the long game, keep your eyes on the prize, and expect the setbacks to happen.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of them. I think if you're afraid of them, you'll do nothing, and that's
Yeah.
that's the worst failure, right?
Yeah.
The worst failure of life. You've only got one life. Well, you got to give it a red hot crack.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna be boring as shit, right? So,
Mm.
but with that's going to come some failures. That's cool. That's fine. Just
Yeah.
that you got to just be with the right people. I think it's important to have the right people around you,
For
so that
sure.
you can deal with it as best you can, and and do it as a team. I think that's important. It's really important to me because it's a lot more fun, right? And it's a lot more enjoyable life when you've got a team around you to do it with.
Yeah.
The ups and the downs. There's going to be downs. That's cool. Like, we'll just
Yeah.
work with it together. But if we don't have if you don't have a setback, it means you're probably not pushing hard enough.
Mm.
You
Agree.
know, it's you got to push. You got to, we're only here once. Give it your best crack at all times. If we stuff it up every now and then, and you and I've probably stuffed it up every now and then, that's fine. That's cool. We'll
Mm.
just move on, learn from it, and deal with it.
Yeah, I think what you said there is probably one of the best points of how do you deal with the setbacks and failures, is like who you surround yourself with is critical there.
Mm,
Because if you're having, you're trying to push and you're having challenging times or failing, and then you're going back and you're falling back onto people that are like, that's, just quite negative around it. Like, why are you even doing this in the first place? Like, you're never even going to get there. Like, that's stupid. Like, why should you, go and do that? Like, no one's ever done that. Or, why are you not satisfied with where you are? I think if you're surrounding yourself with people like that, and you have you're having the doubts in your mind and you're having this input come in from the sidelines as well, it's probably pretty easy to tap out at that point in time. And that's where I think it's an awesome point. Like, the who you surround yourself with there is probably one of the biggest bits and pieces. And that could also be, your family as well. And I think that's definitely one part when my life changed, is when I left home. When I
mm.
actually got out of home at, I think it was 21. It was the best thing, probably one of my best decisions I ever made. Not that I didn't enjoy it, and mum was great cooking and all of those things, but it forces you to grow up. But then yeah, there's like bits of negativity that are around the household and things like that, and that stuff rubs off. And I always say you just got to be very careful with who you spend your time with and where you dedicate that, because they just rub off in your life, and that energy, it's like really contagious. And if you surround yourself with people who are positive, like, you're going to have way better outcomes, I think, in life. Whereas in the past, probably in my early years, I was around a lot of negativity, and fortunately, it didn't really rub off on me. But then when my life changed is probably when I separated myself from those people,
Mm.
and really started taking life, by the horns at that stage, and it really took off. So
Yeah, yeah. I think the key part is, if you want to give life a crack, surround yourself with people that also give life a crack, right?
yeah.
Simple as that. So marry up with the same type of people that's on your journey, or
Yeah.
that think similar, and do it together. And away you go, and just deal with those setbacks as they come, because they're going to come.
Mm.
Just don't make them critical,
Yeah.
and you're good to go.
Yeah, and what about people then are like, all right, Steve, Josh, that all sounds good and well, but like I'm not really that person. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not really that person. So, I'm quite afraid of failing. Like, is there ways to like start, how do you dip your toe in here, and how do you maybe start building up that, that resilience, or that sort of muscle, whatever it is it discipline? I don't know, the ability to get up and just go again. How do you start to build it up? Is there any way you would say, is there ways to start to try and build up that tolerance or that ability?
Yeah. Look, tricky because I've never probably been in that situation because I've always
Mm,
been the other end of the scale. But I'd probably
mm,
say what you said at the start. Like push yourself from a limit perspective.
yep,
Go do a triathlon, go do a
yep,
marathon. Really push yourself, push your brain to that breaking
yep,
stage of fight. It
mm,
really got to fight, and I think that's where you'd start.
yep,
And if you do that over and over and over, combine that with reading a hell of a lot of books. You can
yeah,
really get some good knowledge out of those books, and
yep,
how to train yourself and how to deal with setbacks and how to deal with failures. So when it does happen, it doesn't scare you. I think
yep.
that would be the key part. Combine those two worlds together. And I know you and I read a lot of books now, which is fantastic, and all about this stuff, right? We read a lot about this stuff all the time.
Mhm.
I think that's where I'd start. Just read a lot of books, push yourself, physically, and I reckon that would do some damage.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think, yeah, you're kind of saying like you just got to stack the odds in your favor and look at
Yeah.
things that you can actually control. I think, yeah, the surrounding yourself with the right people and maybe seeking out a mentor. Like maybe you find someone that's like, where you want to maybe be in life, or they're on the journey, and get around, get around them. So that I think that one, there's a lot to be said in just who you're surrounding yourself with. You know, virtual mentors, read books of like those super successful people. Like one really good book from a mindset point of view, I'll say, if we're talking on this topic, would be, I think it's Stay Hard by David Goggins.
Hmm.
And Jesus, like that guy's life and what he went through from an early age is just astonishing. And I think he lost, oh God, is it like 100 pounds over a couple of months to like be able to enter into the Navy SEALs. And it just like blows your mind for the amount of like um stuff this guy's gone up against in his life. So yeah, reading some books, surrounding yourself with the right people, like you said, doing some challenging things. Maybe that could be just going on a 1K run. I don't know,
Yep.
like depending on what your
Yep.
your fitness level is. But I think there's definitely something to be said in just looking after yourself. And like, God, if you don't have like self confidence, I think is probably a big one. Like if you don't like have confidence in yourself, you definitely have to work on that. And how you might work on that is by making sure you feel good about your body and the skin that you're in. And a part of that might be eating healthier. If you've got bad nutrition, probably fixing that up is going to probably make a heck of a lot of difference. Getting some better sleep, going to the gym, getting a routine is probably one that's like really helped me, is just like actually having a routine. So when like things go wrong, it's like I'm not scrambling around in my mind. I'm like, holy shit, what am I doing the next day? What's happening when I get home, or anything else? I'm just like so regimented. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. This is all happening. I'm back on track. So it's not like the whole train is derailed.
Yeah.
It's just it might wiggle off for a
Structure.
second, and then it's just
Yeah.
boom. I'm straight back on the line. So they're definitely things I think would have helped me along the journey. But in closing, Steve, any other nuggets that you've got on your mind?
No, mate. Look, I think like by my life, I think I've had plenty of setbacks in my time, like plenty. But I think we're in a position. We've got these businesses in a position that are pretty good, but that's only because we fight hard. And I think if you're going to be successful in life, learn to fight hard,
Yeah.
whether that's personal or through business. And I think if you can do that, nothing gets in your way.
Agree. I think you just got to keep punching. Like you
Yep.
just keep punching, and think about who you're doing it for. Like, is it is
Mm,
it is it just you, or is it the family,
mm.
wife, kids, husband? Because that's when those times get tough. Maybe you just need to actually just take a second to think about why you're doing this, and who you're doing it for, and then that might be some of the juice that sometimes you need just to get back on the horse, so to speak.
Yep.
So,
Right.
no, been a pleasure, Steve. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there. If you're getting some value out of this, 5 stars on Spotify and Apple, it does help us out a lot. If you can't get enough of us, we're all over the social media channels: TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the Chinese versions as well. One of the advisors at Link is on there, and we do have a newsletter that goes out every week for Steve. If you guys want to subscribe to that, which is in the show notes, and of course, if you want to chat to any of the advisors around your personal situation, you can always jump on the website and book in a free 15-minute call. But Steve, I'll see you on the next one, mate.
See you, mate. Bye.
Cheers.